The following content may contain the discussion of adult themes and topics that some viewers might find upsetting. Viewer discretion is advised. Alright, what is up everybody? My name is Nathan Sample and welcome to the first episode of the Game Juice podcast, the only podcast on the internet about the subject of video gaming. Any other ones that you hear about, it's clearly just some sort of malicious fabrication. There are no other ones online. I wanted to start off the show by giving kind of a brief introduction to me, who I am, what I'm all about, so anyone who watches the show in the future kind of knows what to expect. Like I said, my name is Nathan Sample. I've been a gamer since I was super young, 5 years old. My first console I ever remember owning was the Sega Genesis. And with that, I had Toe Jam and Earl. I had a Street Fighter II Championship Edition. The second Streets of Rage. I don't think I had the first. And I think I had the first or the second Sonic the Hedgehog game. I run a gaming YouTube channel named Nathan Sample Games. And I call my fan base NSG fans, Nathan Sample Game fans. So whenever I do introduce the show, a lot of times you will most likely hear me say, "What is up, NSG fans?" This podcast will be streamed live over on twitch.tv/Nathan Sample Games for most of the episodes. There will still be pre-recorded episodes that are just audio, like this episode here. My goal is that whenever I have a guest on, I would really like to stream it then. Now, I'm very new to this whole podcasting thing. I'm still kind of familiarizing myself with the process. I asked the folks over on Twitter, I said, "Okay, everyone, I think I'm going to stream/record my first podcast episode tomorrow. What topics would you be interested in hearing me talk about?" The first question I got was from one of my patrons, Sassy Cat. She says, "If you could create your own video game, what would it be like? Title. Would you be a character in this game? I would not Mary Sue myself into a video game." Or is there a different term for when a guy does it compared to when a girl self-inserts herself, or is it all just Mary Sue? If I did make a video game, I'm very fond of platformers, and I'm very fond of sandbox action games like Grand Theft Auto and Prototype and Crackdown, so I would probably do one of those two genres. What the story would be, I would probably just have it be generic. It'd be like, "In a distant future, a man with mumps runs wild, and he kisses everyone on their thigh gaps." The title of it would be Mumpopolis, and it would be the greatest video game ever made. The next question I got was from my friend Happy Married Gamer. He says, "What controller is your favorite controller out of all console generations?" I've got two answers to that. My favorite controller for 3D gaming specifically, the best controller, in my opinion, most comfortable, just feels right in the hands, is the Xbox 360 controller. It feels right when you pick it up. The only complaint that I do have about it is I believe the rubber coating on the analog stick gets worn out if you're a disgusting, sweaty, red-headed weirdo like me. I guess I'm not red-headed, I've got a red beard, but still. My friend just_static258 says, "Well, it's a gaming podcast, right? Tell us your very first gaming memory. What got you into gaming? And what your favorite console is and why. Tell us a game franchise you want to make a comeback as well." So my first ever gaming memory, and this is very hazy, but I remember sitting on the floor, in our kitchen at my dad's trailer house. I don't know why we had a box TV in the kitchen, because I'm pretty sure we moved that TV from the kitchen to the living room later. We had two TVs in that house at that time. So I remember sitting on the floor playing Toe Jam and Earl with my sister. I remember we had this weird conversation because the game says like Toe Jam is a wiener and Earl is a wiener. And then when you play it, I think when you play it one player, it says that the other character is on vacation. And so I remember discussing that with my sister and being very, not understanding the joke and her having to kind of explain it to me. I think I remember just being like, that's mean. Regarding what got me into gaming originally, I think I did have a natural sort of excitement about gaming just from the start. But my Uncle Bubba specifically, he was actually my great uncle. He was very, very, very instrumental in me getting into gaming because he always played video games. Forgive me if any of my family ever hears this, okay? And I love my uncle. May he rest in peace. He had terrible luck with women. Just horrible luck with women. And so he would come home from his job and he would sit in his bedroom. He would mess around on the computer. He would he'd watch movies. He had like a big shelf of DVDs, and he'd play video games a lot. And I'm not implying that everyone who plays games a lot is bad with women. I play games a lot. A lot of people play video games a lot. I just mean that he used it as an escape from what he was going through, in my opinion, based on my own observations. And so I would visit his house, and at that point we lived in the trailer house. I had the Sega Genesis, and our trailer house had we didn't have cable. We had an antenna outside, and we got maybe 12 channels clearly. And cartoons would only come on early in the morning before school. And it was not that bad, but we did not have a whole lot of luxuries at that time. So we would go and visit my great-grandparents and my great uncle every weekend because their house felt like home. It felt like people who I'm trying to think of the best, kindest way to explain it without being like, oh, we had it bad. Their house was nice and they had nice things there. They had cable TV. They had running water, which we didn't have at that time. We had to cure pond water, and we drank water from like a big jug my family would take to Walmart. And we had video games and movies and DVDs and I think this is before they had VHS tapes. And so I'd visit them and I'd always play Crash Bandicoot. I'd play Crash Bandicoot and I'd play Mario 64. And eventually my uncle got very tired of his Nintendo 64. And he knew that, to me, that was the one thing that I wanted so badly. I begged my mom. She asked me what I wanted for Christmas. And I remember the exact words I always repeated. I said, I want a Nintendo 64 with a Mario game with a castle in it. I didn't know the name Mario 64. I said, a Nintendo 64 with a Mario game with a castle in it. Because that's what I knew. And that game to me was just like this insane, like sprawling world. And it was just mesmerizing to me. And so my uncle, after he got sick of his N64, he gave it to me. And that really helped me get into gaming. Then there were two games that I remember playing a lot with my mom when I was a little kid. One of those was once I got a PlayStation way later on, we played Spyro the Dragon together. And it's weird, my mom has never been much of a gamer, ever. But when she gets into a game, she obsessively plays that game. And so my mom got into Spyro and she played it to the very end, but the nasty Norg boss made her sick because all of the crazy fast movement that was going on. And we also played what I consider my favorite game of all time, Banjo-Kazooie, together. And so those two things to me really, really solidified and were instrumental in just getting me into video games. On top of that, I was the youngest in my family, and while everyone else was just out doing stuff. I was too little to do anything, so I played video games a lot, and that also, I think, kind of further solidified that for me. Regarding what my favorite console is and why, I would probably say that my favorite console is the PlayStation 2 or the Nintendo Switch. The PS2 to me it is like the Super Nintendo of its era. The NES was very popular, but there's just a lot of crap on the console. Forgive me, but for every good game, there's like 5 terrible games on the NES. On the SNES, in my opinion, even the worst games are really not that bad. And for the most part, I feel the exact same way about the PS2. The SNES era was taking what was there and making it better. The PS2 era was taking what was there and making it better. And I would argue that or the PS3 era are probably my favorites, because just no matter what console you had, there were great games to be played. It was the last time that I think Nintendo had decent third-party support. It wasn't great, but it was all right. And regarding what game franchise I would want to make a comeback, I'm not sure. I'm trying to look over on my game shelf to see what games I have over there that I would want to make a comeback. I would say a traditional Star Fox game would be a breath of fresh air. Like, I think Nintendo just hates money with a lot of their sort of, I'm going to say, B-level franchises. Everyone's wanted another F-Zero game for forever. Nintendo is just like, nah. Everyone's wanted a normal Star Fox game. One that isn't like, oh, you gotta take the gamepad and you have to move it around and you have to do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around, because that's what it's all about. I was once an alcoholic, and then I did the hokey pokey, and I turned my life around! But yeah, Probably Star Fox or F-Zero. Okay, so my next question is from LinktheInformer over on Twitter. He says, what made you decide to begin streaming and doing videos? To be honest, I've done, not streaming, but I've done videos since I was like 13 years old. I was watching a lot of The Angry Video Game Nerd, and I was watching a lot of, I believe, Classic Game Room. Not like the more modern Classic Game Room, which is good, but like the old Classic Game Room where they had like sketches, and they had Mark Bussler, and then there was the other guy, Dave something. It was a more produced show, I'll say. Or at least a more comedic show would probably be better, because they're both pretty well produced. And so I just watched a lot of that and was like, I want to do that. And so I embarked on my journey. I traveled every mountaintop, every mountainside, every summit of specifically I started my journey on a mountain. I just, I didn't know where else to start, but a mountain seemed like the place to go. All right, I don't have any more questions, and currently I don't really have a whole lot else to talk about. I just wanted to do this little episode to help introduce the show. I'm actually looking at my show outline right now, right? I have it in this order. Briefly introduce yourself. Talk about how you burned yourself with scalding soup this morning. And then actually answer questions. To cover that, this morning I spilled a bowl of scalding hot soup on my stomach, and it's much better now. But for like 3 or 4 hours, my skin was burning, and it really hurt. I don't know why I put that on the show outline. I guess I thought it'd be an interesting anecdote. But thank you everyone for listening. If you do want to support this show, go to patreon.com/NathanSampleGames and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Podcast, and anywhere where you can consume podcasts, Spotify, etc. And I will talk to you all in the next one. Thank you all.